Welcome back to the All Ball Podcast, where it's all ball all the time. You are here with your host, Sean and Isaiah. This is episode number 66, and today we're going to be talking about different players and or teams that have impressed us or disappointed us, and we'll just kind of go off of that. We kind of got a freestyle it today. Not too much has gone on around the league, the past couple days. Nothing too crazy, but before all that, Isaiah, how you feeling today, man?
I'm feeling good because, as you know, our Houston Astros are now champions. And I know that's not the sport that we normally cover on this podcast, but it's a win. So we have to talk about it because this is really our only hope.
Yeah, it definitely is, with the Texans being as terrible as they are. The Rockets being one of the disappointing teams that I guess we could talk about today. The Astros are like the one shining star in Houston, and it's by a long shot.
I think it's fitting that you called them the shining star since our logo is a star.
It's a star. But yeah, what a great way to end the season for the Astros. Obviously you always want to end in a championship, but we finally won a World Series against us 2017 after losing two of them in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what a great win for Houston all around.
And it's one that they can't hold over our head for some BS reason. So
yeah, that too. No more allegations, no more cheating scandals, none of that. That's all out the window. But let's get into our main sport that we talk about on here, basketball. And let's get into some teams and or players that have impressed us or disappointed us. And I'll go ahead and start with mine that I want to talk about first.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Drew Holiday.
Yes, I can see that. Mm-hmm.
Drew Holiday has impressed me because of the way he's been able to turn up his offensive game without Chris Middleton being here. And go ahead.
No, you can continue. You continue.
Okay, so just to start, because of all the baseball stuff that's been happening, and just other daily life things, I haven't been able to watch too much basketball. But from what I have seen when I've seen the Bucks games, is the way that Drew Holiday is more so actually trying to be that number two guy. Like from last year's playoffs, it looks like a whole completely different player. Because I don't know if you remember how bad he was offensively.
Trust me, I will never forget how bad Drew Holiday can be. Just like I'll never forget how bad Chris Middleton can be at times. Right.
And I have to ask you, because of the way Drew Holiday's playing, and the Bucks just at this, at the moment of this recording, I believe are 8-0?
9-0 now.
9-0. Is this the best team we've seen in Milwaukee over the past 5 years? It might be an overreaction because it's only 9 games into the season.
I think it's fair to say that roster-wise. Because, when we look at it, they don't make too many big changes with their roster per se. So, when you're looking at it, it's still the same main core since their championship. But then you look at certain guys that they brought in, like Javon Carter, I think is a really big piece for them. And I think I'll just go ahead and talk about some other players because one of my surprising teams is the Bucks because 9-0 is very unexpected. Mm-hmm. But Javon Carter has been a really big player for them. The way that he gets in passing lanes or just straight rips players, it's been impressive. I'm not sure if he'll be able to sustain it, but his defense has been really good for them. And he's been pretty decent shooting as well. Wesley Matthews has been a good player for them. I know they had him last season, but Chris Middleton going out kind of derailed all of that. But it's like it doesn't even matter. It's just they're like, who needs Chris Middleton? We're a perfectly championship level team without him. And so it just makes you wonder, how good is this team going to be when he comes back?
That's exactly what I was about to ask you. How good is this team going to perform once they finally get Chris Middleton back? Because I don't think in any way Chris Middleton will hurt the team by coming back. He's a plus defender. He's definitely a plus, plus on the offense.
Hmm.
Another guy that I want to talk about is Brook Lopez.
Oh, yes.
This guy has been anchoring the interior all season long. Blocks, rebounds, and just defending in general. And then on top of that, on offense, he's been really efficient, except that one game versus the Nets.
Hmm.
And then I think he had like one or two more games that he was not too efficient in. But for the most part, this season he's been like one of their top players.
Oh, yeah. Especially when you talk about his efficiency, I think of that game against the Hawks where he came out and made like four straight threes, I think. And it was
Mm,
like a crazy shootout between him and Trey Young. And it's like, wow, Brook Lopez, he's really decided to turn it up this season. Like, I know he's up there in age, but it feels like he sort of rewound the clock a little bit for this season.
right. And so I have to ask you, are the Bucks looking like they'll just easily win the East right now?
I
Like if
wouldn't
they
say
continue this play.
I wouldn't say easily because when you look at their games, they've had close games, even though they've won them. Which I mean, that's
Mhm.
definitely a very good sign. But they're having close games with teams that they should not have close games with. So I think it would still be a struggle for them to win, but I definitely have them as the favorites right now.
Mhm. All right. So was there another player or team that you wanted to talk about that you had been thinking about for a while?
Yes, because I feel like we have to address the elephant in the room.
Mm.
The Golden State Warriors are 3-7, and a big part of that is the fact that Klay Thompson, he's not returning back to form. Now,
Mm.
obviously, he suffered two extremely terrible injuries. So, still might need more time on that. But it seems like he's really struggling to even be a fraction of what he was before. It's like almost every game this season, he's just come out and looked awful.
Mm. I can't blame it all on Klay Thompson.
Oh no,
Uh,
it's
no,
not. It's definitely not all on Clay, but it's a big part for sure.
right. No, I get what you're saying. I want to point out some other things I see with the Warriors that I have problems with.
Hmm.
Well, not so much problems, but they're having problems with is that one is their defense. I
Yeah.
think losing Gary Payton has been by far the biggest loss from that team they've had in a while. Obviously, other than KD, but the way that Gary Payton fitted onto that team was almost like as smoothly as possible.
Hmm.
He played his role well, and he brought defensive intensity that only Draymond Green was bringing. Another thing that I have a problem with is the James Wiseman fit. He
Hmm.
looks terrible. And I think at this point in his, career, it's already what, 3 years removed out of the draft.
Yeah, because played a little bit of the first year, missed the whole second year, and now it's third.
Mm. I think if you're the Warriors, you have to move him at this point. I don't think you could bank on his potential anymore based on Clay Thompson declining,
Hmm.
Curry's getting up there in age, and your only other pieces that you have left that really will be around for the rest of the team, Wiggins, because you just signed him, and Poole. Those are the
Hmm.
two guys that you really, could look at and say, I'm going to keep on this team for the next 5 years. Other than that, the whole Warriors dynasty, those players that have been in part of that dynasty are about to be out of that team.
Hmm.
So if you're the Warriors right now, you definitely have to look at moving Wiseman for anything that can help the team especially on the defensive side of the ball.
And I have to fully agree with you there. Even in the games where James Wiseman has looked good in terms of like not necessarily the numbers, but just watching the eye test, like I think it was their game against the Heat where he was getting good seals down low in the post and transition, and he was running the floor well. But then for some reason, nobody on the Warriors knew how to make a accurate entry pass to the post.
Mm.
And so I feel like just something about that fit on the team, like that was probably the most evident sign. Because when you think about it, with the exception of the time KD spent there, nobody on the Warriors has ever played in the post. And so I mean, obviously, a post entry pass should not be something that you struggle with simply because you've never had a prominent post player. But nonetheless, I feel like that string of incidents was kind of like a a bigger sign of the fit problem with Wiseman.
Mm. And I think it kind of points to, the Warriors played one style of basketball for most of this time.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they've kind of lost the pieces that they've had to play that style of basketball, it's troubling them to kind of fit into another style. Now they're not completely changing everything, but still adding like a real traditional big in Wiseman
Mm-hmm.
is it seems like it doesn't even make sense to the Warriors in some type of way.
Exactly. And it's funny because really when you think about it, Kevon Looney is more of a traditional big than Wiseman is, but he just simply does not have a major offensive game. So it's never
Mm,
really impacted their system because he was just on the court to set good screens, even if they're illegal sometimes, and get offensive rebounds. So it's like, all right, that's all he's here for on this end of the court, at least.
mm,
Whereas now you put Wiseman on the court. First of all, he's young, inexperienced, and he's pretty skinny. So he's not setting those same kinds of screens. And then he also expects more offensive setup. I mean, after all, he was a number 2 pick. So come on, you gotta give him a little bit more attention than he's been getting. And maybe this is just not the team for him. So they need to very quickly look into trades for him.
So I want to talk about two more things with the Warriors.
Hmm.
Um, I'll go ahead and keep it on this because this is still related to Wiseman. If they do decide to trade Wiseman, should they look for another big who is better, obviously better than Wiseman, but in a way is like a traditional big that, is going to defend the paint, can't really stretch the floor? Or should they go back to their style of basketball, play a small ball type of lineup and get a guy who's maybe around the 6'8" range, 6'9" range, can stretch the floor and play, decent defense?
Um, I don't think it necessarily matters which one they go for. I think what matters with whoever they decide to get is that it's a player who does not command too much of an offensive role. So, like, I think the perfect trade for them in terms of getting a traditional center, maybe, would be somebody who's been in trade talks for a good long while now, Miles Turner,
Mm-hmm.
where, he doesn't have a huge offensive role, but he has good offensive skills. So even if, they hit him on an open spot up three off a screen, okay, yeah, he can make that most of the time. Even when he's rolling to the basket, you lob it up to him, he'll finish the lob, but he's not necessarily gonna sit on the block and request the ball. He doesn't need to do that to be effective for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other end, if they wanted to, they could get one of those, 6'8" multi-positional guys who will just stretch the floor, play good all around defense, and help them be that run and gun type of team.
Right. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, with the Warriors before we moved on was Dante DiVincenzo.
Hmm.
And I know he's only played 3 games, but so far through those 3 games, it has not looked good. And this was supposed to be one of the better signings throughout the league. Even though DiVincenzo's more, definitely a role player, he was
Yeah,
supposed to kind of fill that Gary Payton role.
exactly what I was about to say. He was supposed to be the replacement for Gary Payton.
And he's looked really bad. I can't really put it into any other words than just pretty bad.
And that's the thing about that signing where I never really saw it as a good signing because when you look at him in his past couple of seasons, he's not looked good, both in terms of his health track record and the numbers he put up.
Mm.
So I don't necessarily understand why people were hyped up for this signing because I could already see that it was going to be plagued by injury issues, even if he was playing well.
Mm. So let's go ahead and move on to another team or player. Would you like to go ahead and talk about the Rockets and their awful start to the season?
Yeah, I guess we can go ahead and address that.
So I guess let's go ahead and get the obvious out of the way, which is Jabari Smith Jr. Terrible, atrocious start to the season. There's been, I believe, about 4 games out of the, I believe, 9 we've played where it seems like, well, and it doesn't seem like he's failed to score, I believe, over 10 points. And for a guy that's supposed to be this almost like quote unquote unicorn on offense,
Who's supposed to be a KD type?
exactly. And you're coming out shooting like 30% from the field is just disappointing on all levels. Now, I wasn't expecting him to be Jalen Green on the second half of the season, but I also I wasn't expecting him to be this
First
bad
half of
to
the
start.
season, Jalen
Yeah,
Green.
exactly, exactly. It seemed like Jabari Smith was more NBA ready than Jalen Green was, in his rookie year.
Absolutely.
Um, Another thing I want to talk about.
But before we move on from that, I do need to say I don't care how good he ends up becoming for us. I still want to stand by the fact that I wanted Paolo for us. I'm I'm just putting it out there. Y'all y'all can go check the pre-draft episodes. I said that, and I wish it was true. But
I think we both said it, and I still stand by it, even though I do obviously support Jabari to be the best player he can be. But it's looking pretty rough for us right now. It's looking really bad.
it looks like our time of despair is not over. But what are you gonna move on to?
Kevin Porter Jr. has been the highlight of our team so far.
Oh yeah,
He's finally looking like a true point guard. Maybe not a true point guard, but he's definitely developing, more into it than
yeah. He seems more comfortable in the role.
right, and at a faster pace. It seems like he's developing more than he was last year.
Hmm.
Um, Jalen Green, I am, I'm very disappointed in his start to the season. Just because of how well he was playing at the end of last season.
And how well he started this season in the first like 2-3 games, I think.
Hmm.
But it's since then it he has fallen off of a cliff.
And I'm tired of seeing him settle for these step back threes like he's James Harden back in his prime with us.
Hmm.
I need to see more out of Jalen Green before I can go ahead and say he's for sure our number one guy. Because Jabari, although through 9 games or so, hasn't looked that well. I'm not for sure counting him out. But Jalen Green right now is not looking like the number one guy on our team.
Oh yeah, yeah. When you are as quick and explosive as he is on the court, there's no reason why you should be settling for these light speed step back threes. Like if you look at the way he steps back, he gets the space almost instantly. So why are you putting up a three on that almost every time?
Mm.
Like that's the kind of thing about Jalen Green that really bothers me to see.
And another thing that I want to point out about the Rockets is a guy that we were, I'm sure definitely close to trading, and Kenyon Martin Jr. has almost played, or I would say even played levels above Jabari Smith Jr.
Without
Now, not to say that Kenyon Martin could be a franchise guy or anything like that. Even though he's my favorite player, but
at this point, Jabari Smith hasn't shown to be one either.
Well, that's true, but it is through 9 games, so I don't want to count it out yet. But it's disappointing to see that the Rockets were even considering trading Kenyon Martin.
I mean, it's because he wanted to leave. That's the only reason why they were considering it.
Well, they weren't guaranteeing him any role on the team.
Mm-hmm.
That was the whole thing. When even from last year, I definitely think he should have been starting last year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think he should start now, but I know they're going to start Eric Gordon.
Well, they're actually starting him at the 4, at least in the last game they did. So
I'm looking at the stats right now. He started 3 out of the 10 games, so that's a start. But that is also due to injuries because Jayshawn Tate was out for the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm. Jabari's
missed some games. Yeah. Bruno Fernando is being missed terribly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of weird to say about a guy who I didn't think was even going to play at all this season.
Man, who would have thought that one of our most valuable players would be a guy that we were flabbergasted to see in the trade package?
Right. I mean, it blew my mind that the Rockets even gave him an extension.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, can we sign him for longer? Because the way he's been able to, I wouldn't say anchor our defense, but he's shown a lot of hustle on our defense.
He's been one of our more impressive defensive players. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Other than that, I just kind of want to go over some quick things, really quick about the Rockets. Just not even really get too much into them. Get Garrison Matthews off the floor. I don't ever want to see him on the floor again. Get Daishen Nix off our team. Please get Christopher on the floor more often. That's all I want to say.
Yeah. Another little thing that I want to slide in there right quick is Tari Eason is another one who's kind of disappointed us. He did have a good game last night, so we'll give him his credit for that. But I don't know if it's because they're not giving him a big enough role or if it's just something else. I don't know, but I hope we see more games like he had last night.
Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I don't want Eason to take on too much of a bigger role than he has right now. I don't want to overwhelm him for a guy that doesn't really have that big of an offensive package. Mm-hmm. I just need Jabari to do something more than average 10 points a game.
Oh yeah, no, that's a definite. But what I'm saying is for Tari Eason is like, there's too many times where I've been watching a game and I've seen him miss layups. I need him to not do that. That's what I'm asking for it, because in the preseason when we saw him, he'd get an offensive board, he'd clean it up. That was the play. Maybe he takes it in transition, finishes the play on a layup, or he might drive, get a layup or two, and that was it. That's how he was getting his points. But as far as this season's start goes, he wasn't doing any of that. Like, he was attempting it, and he was just missing layups, and that was my problem. Like, he'd
Mm-hmm.
clean up the offensive board, miss the layup. He'd
Mm-hmm.
take somebody on the drive, miss the layup. And it's like, all right, man, come on. Yeah. Making layups is like the baseline that I'm asking of him.
Mm-hmm. The last thing I want to say about the Rockets before we move on to them is I'm looking at the stats right now. Kevin Porter Jr. leads in 3 different statistical categories:
Mm-hmm.
points, assists, and steals. Şengün leads rebounds, Jabari leads in blocks, and the only reason Jabari leads in blocks is because Fernando's not playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely weird to see that a guy who is looked to be our number 3 or number 4 best player on the team for this, rebuilding franchise, leading in these categories.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this before, I think in last episode, and I'll say it again. Although I don't really want this to happen to anyone, but I think it might be in the air soon. Coach Silas might need to go. It might be his time.
And that would be a fair move to make at this point, especially with the way Jalen Green started the season well and then has seemingly now regressed back to his first half of last season's self.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at some point you really need to take a hard look at the coaching staff and how they're coaching these guys on the court.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, is there another team or player you really wanted to talk about?
Yeah, just really quick. This one can be a nice little brush over, but
All right.
I do want to say that Jamal Murray really hasn't been living up to those standards that we believed, where we thought he would be the first person to just snap back into form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he really hasn't done that so far this season. And so, I'm hoping that he can get that together.
Haven't been able to watch too many Nuggets games, so I'm not even going to comment on that. But just looking at the stats, I'm guessing you're talking about his efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, because 9 for 21 is not looking too good. 3 for 12 is looking pretty bad. Yeah. All right, so we can go ahead and keep an eye on him over the next 2 or 3 weeks to see if hopefully he turns it up finally, like how we predicted. So we're not wrong on all of our predictions. But yeah, I guess we can go ahead and wrap everything up. Any last players or anything, any teams like that?
Very last thing I want to say before we close out is, at the current time of this recording, there is a Cavs and Lakers game going on. And I just want to say, shout out to the Cavs for really turning it up on the Lakers, because I checked this at halftime. The Lakers were winning. I checked around like the end of the third quarter, and the score was 84-80, and now it's 92-80. So
a pretty big offensive drop by the Lakers.
So yeah, just a big offensive and defensive drop, honestly, to let the Cavs go on a almost 10-0 run with a minute and a half having passed in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's rough. I know LeBron over there looking at every single teammate, looking who he can make the most, trade value out of.
Oh yeah, especially considering that this is one of the better games LeBron has actually had. He's 11 for 20, 22 points. So yeah, he needs to start looking at Lonnie Walker and Kendrick Nunn. Where y'all want to go?
Yeah, man, he gonna get that Woj bomb soon about them being in a package deal. But all right, well, let's go ahead and wrap things up. It's gonna be the end of the episode. If you like the episode, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe and comment down below. Comment about which players you've been impressed or disappointed with. Isaiah, any last comments?
Don't forget, share the podcast with as many people as you can.
All right, we will catch you on the next episode.